Hi there. My name is Lorna Williams, and I'm a mum to five children.
Wow.
My youngest of which is 12, age 12, my son. So there's
Yeah.
four boys and one girl. The girl's in the middle, and as I say, my
Okay.
youngest child is 12.
Right. And I think that we were thinking about having a conversation about a story about one particular child's kind of journey towards home education. So,
Yeah.
do you want to detail who that son was and kind of when homeschooling started to become a tangible possibility for you?
Okay. Like my youngest, as I say, is 12, and he's currently homeschooled. He didn't start off being homeschooled. He was in a mainstream school, year seven, up until December last year.
Right.
Now, the main reason that why we decided to homeschool him, because myself and my husband, the reason we decided to homeschool, there was a series of incidents.
Okay.
And although on the surface they may have seemed trivial,
Yeah.
we could see them escalating. It started off with something really, for want of a better word, straightforward. He got a sanction, and they have different levels of sanctions within the school. The first sanction was about 3 weeks after he started year seven,
Three
and it
weeks.
was a,
Wow.
yeah, just 3 weeks in. It was a 40-minute detention for lack of focus. That was what was sent in the email to say to
That's
justify
unbelievable.
this 40-minute detention. Now, we thought this is not, when he explained what had actually happened,
Yeah.
alarm bells sort of went off in our head. That's not quite right. It wasn't, he wasn't, he was sent to do group work within a music lesson. And the rest of the group weren't quite engaged in the way that he wanted them to be engaged. So he decided, well, they're already sitting on the floor. He was going to sit on the floor with his back to them. And that was what happened.
Right.
Um, so we wanted to talk to the teacher about we wanted to understand why he was given such a severe, sanction for
Quite a
something
minor
that
thing.
clearly was, something wasn't communicated right or something. Anyway, we just wanted to understand the sanction because a lack of focus just didn't tell us anything.
Yeah.
Anyway, we didn't get an appointment. Weeks went by. Then there was another sanction, and this time it was for not handing in homework. Again, a 40-minute detention for
Right.
not giving in homework. Now,
Okay.
the thing is, he did the homework. He
Oh,
couldn't find it in his bag. He was disorganized. He was just a bit disorganized. I'm not excusing anything
no,
he's
I
done. I'm
understand, but it's good
explaining.
to kind of think about the sanction versus what's actually gone on. Yeah.
And then the final straw for us came when there was I was away. I was working full time at the time, and I
Yeah.
was actually away in Scotland. And my husband called me and said, there'd been a problem at school, and he'd been described as very aggressive, and I was like, who? Now, if it had been any of his other brothers, I would have said, yeah, okay, all right, what happened?
Yeah.
But he's the most mild mannered
Yeah.
of all my children,
Yeah.
so it was like,
Yeah.
who are they talking about? It didn't compute.
Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, eventually we're called, we were summoned to the school. We had a meeting. We eventually had a meeting with the deputy head of year, no, the
Yeah.
head of year and her deputy.
Okay.
And when this came about, by the time after a discussion with myself and my husband and finding out what actually took place, I said, you know what? I said, that's it. I've had enough. I
And what
said,
was the dynamic like in that meeting? I just kind of quite interested. What was that
oh,
kind of like, or how did
we
you
had,
feel you were treated?
sorry, what was that? Say again,
How did
sorry.
you feel like you were treated in that meeting? Kind of, because I think there's a kind of thing that keeps coming out actually is that Black parents in the school don't feel like they're being listened to or acknowledged actually in a kind of respectful manner.
Interesting you should say that. I know this may, because of my experience, if you like, of being a parent going into schools for the last 20 plus years, because there's a big age gap. I've got, as I said, my
Yeah.
children, there's a vast age span. Now, I think maybe if this had been 10, 15 years ago, I would have said to you, yeah, I, I, I could say, yes, definitely, I got that kind of dismissive, but
But
I've learnt the game. And I'm going to say exactly as I felt it, I've learnt the game. So we went in there respectfully, we asked for a meeting and we got the meeting. And it was just, and we basically, we went in there determined to, um, well, basically determined for our child to leave. We were going to take him out. We'd already made up our minds
already kind of made that
to,
decision. Okay, yeah,
yeah. So
yeah,
we wanted to hear what they had to say.
right,
We'd made up our minds what we were going to do, but we
yeah.
wanted to see what they were gonna what they were.
You're kind of more going in terms of like not curiosity, but it was more like we've made our decision. We're just interested
Mhm.
to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. It was giving the school the opportunity
Yeah,
to tell us from their perspective about our child, how they saw things.
yeah,
Anyway, the long and short of it, in that meeting, what transpired was quite interesting because suddenly there was that realization that maybe there's something not quite right here.
mm,
Maybe we didn't quite handle this correctly. That
yeah,
wasn't said, but it was what was offered. Oh, well, do you think it would benefit for your son to see the educational psychologist? It was really to try and they offered an educational psychologist,
yeah.
and they said, would they, the way it was phrased was, do you think this would be helpful? And we're like, but what it's clear that there's, for them to suddenly decide they're going to offer that, we knew, my gut was telling me there's something not quite right, but I didn't know what it was at that time.
Right. Okay.
Anyway, the long and short of it is that what happened was, they did, this was in November, and they did a week-long kind of report from all his teachers about, how he's progressing and his behavior within the class. And we
Mm,
got that report. And as I say, I said to them, well, he's going to be leaving your school. I'm deregistering him. I'm
yeah.
going to put it in writing, and he's going to be deregistered from your school. And I said, there isn't anything that anyone can tell me now. I've made up my mind.
Yeah.
I can be very
That's
forthright.
it. Yeah. Good. Well, it's your child at
Anyway,
the end of
so
the day. And what
I,
was the reaction? What was the reaction to that comment?
well, if I'm honest, relief.
Yeah.
If, I think they were relieved because it's one less black child to worry about.
Such a
Let me just
horrible thing.
let me
Yeah.
just tell it as I felt it.
Yeah. No. Of course. I don't want you to change, but that is really,
So
that is a really sad and actually very depressing reaction to also experience as a mother.
yeah, it is, because I've never had to deal with any of my children. I've never gotten to this stage, and I've had some really harrowing instances with my children at school.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, so I sent the letter in, and I said that he wouldn't be coming back after the Christmas break.
Yeah.
So he was at school right through till December.
Yeah.
The interesting thing was, when I sent the letter in, I addressed it to the head of the school, and
Yeah.
it was the deputy head of the school that called me and said, is it, basically it was a tick box exercise,
Mm.
where she, rang me to say, is everything, is there anything that we can do? And I said, well,
More out of
there's,
formality rather than actually out of
yes,
genuine care
yeah.
or.
So I said, well, he's had 3 sanctions that I'm just not happy with, and to use her words, but it's only 3 sanctions. He's got 79 merits. I said he could have 100 merits. He's got 3 sanctions too many, and she just
Yeah.
went quiet.
Yeah.
Now, if she cared, or if the school cared at all,
Mm.
what I felt could have happened. Okay, Mrs. Williams, can we start from a clean slate? Let's
Yeah.
start again.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they had said to me, let's start again, let's have a reset, let's start again.
Actually, it was just
It
okay.
was
Good
just,
luck with everything.
yeah, good luck to you. best to
How
get
would
on
you
with
say
it.
that you found homeschooling? I mean, now it must be kind of a bit of a surreal time in the sense that because of coronavirus and like a lot of people have actually had to make that transition. But how would you
Yeah.
say you found that transition, and how would you say that you think that that's benefited your son, particularly as a black boy in the British education system?
Right. Now, that's a very, very interesting question. Really interesting. And I'm going to try and answer it as best I can. Now, as I say, I've kind of been homeschooling before it became fashionable. That's what I say to most of my friends when they're
Yeah,
tearing their
you have
hair
been,
out.
no, you really have been.
When I started out, everybody was basically saying, "Well, good for you." you know,
Yeah.
I wish you all the best. You've really bitten off more you can chew. This is really going to be a disaster. Da, 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 da. Not in those words, but very much
Yeah.
like that. And I came across a lot of the fact that you know schools are paid money to educate our children, but if I decide it's called best of British, you won't get any financial help. Now, I gave up a full-time job to do this.
Right. Okay.
And one of the first things I found, I was in the world of the benefit system. And suddenly I found, what do you mean I'm getting a sanction because I told you that I will not be available to work?
Yeah.
So I told them what I'm doing, and they said, tough cheese. We're going to reduce your money because you're homeschooling. So I had the double whammy of no longer having full-time
And now
income,
getting no sort of financial.
and so the financial help was limited.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit. And an interesting thing, a lot of the online resources that I had to pay for were free. And I was like, yes, get in.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get in there, and I'm gonna get all this stuff. And because I'm on, there's a social media link that I'm on. It's not the one that people put nonsense in. It's like professional one. I'm not going to endorse them by talking about them, as they get enough money.
Yeah.
But basically, on one of those forums, there was a group that was talking about Black History Studies.
Okay. Yeah.
And I thought, and they put out this really great post with all these different Black women and said, do you know who these women are? And I was fascinated. I was like, I saw one out of the 12 that I thought, I think I know, that's Mary C. Cole. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
somebody answered all these questions, and it put me on a quest. I actually went online and got all the information.
Oh, brilliant.
And I said to my son, we're going to learn about some Black history. You and I are going to learn together.
Oh,
And
so nice.
suddenly it opened up this whole thing about,
Yeah.
this was before, if you like, this was before that incident that made everybody suddenly realize
Yeah.
racism is
Kind of
still
the
very much
most
alive and
catalyst
kicking.
that made Black Lives Matter so visible.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So before all of that, and because this was around March,
Right.
let me back up a bit. Yeah, in February,
Yeah.
a chance conversation with a retired nurse said to me, she's a foster carer, and I was telling her about my struggles with homeschooling. And she said to me, have you thought about Asperger's? And I said, what's that? I didn't know what it was. She
Okay.
said, oh, it's something on the autistic spectrum. I had a chance encounter conversation with a retired nurse, and she mentioned Asperger's and it being on the autistic spectrum. And I was like, I didn't have a clue. So she said, I'm not going to say anything, just go and look at the traits. Go to this, to the Autistic Society website, and you'll see. When I went on there, I suddenly started nodding my head. I said, yeah, oh, what? Yeah,
Yeah.
he's all of that. Okay, bro, okay. And that started me on a quest to get information about and help for him, because
Yeah. Yeah.
everything suddenly came together. So one of the things I did was I requested some reports, the school reports that are sent to the school. And interestingly enough, there was a lot of missing information, and I
Yeah.
thought,
Yeah.
And the kind of missing information was that in primary school, he was seen by the SEN coordinator, and a report was done, but it was never given
I mean,
to
something that
us.
you're saying now is this kind of like, it's really, really frustrating that there's no communication between primary schools and secondary schools, because a lot of things are missed, and actually it's always at the disadvantage of the child.
Yes.
And it means that a child with certain needs is treated like every other child when they get to the mainstream or the secondary school education, and a lot of things are missed, and then they are sanctioned in a way that they shouldn't be.
Well, the interesting factor, what this led me to was a quest to actually get some help. And during the lockdown, I got him assessed via a Zoom call, and he has the diagnosis of ASD, high functioning ASD, and
Okay.
ADHD. So
Right.
he has both of those struggles.
Mm.
Now, the interesting thing about all of that is that um, I've gone back to the education department for my local authority and said, this is what I would like you to do. I'd like you to do an EHC.
Yeah.
Which, so an assessment is starting to be done, but I had to do that. No school done that.
Which
Now,
really isn't your job.
no, but
Yeah.
the schools failed in doing so. But it wasn't just in high school. I can go back to primary school and instances whereby he was labeled just a bit naughty, just a little bit disruptive, a little bit energetic.
Yeah.
Those are the terms and ways he was described.
Right.
And when he was younger, I was an even busier working mum.
Yes. Yeah.
And my husband did, he was doing shift work. I mean, parenting was very much like that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
still juggle. Um, it was difficult. I want to come back to answer your question. To the best way I can answer it is this: I believe that if I had been white English and
Yeah.
my son had been white English, that when he was described as a little bit naughty as a little kid of 4,
Yeah.
they would have looked at it differently. When
Yeah.
he was
I
then
mean,
further
I agree.
disrupted,
Mm.
they would have looked at it a bit differently. But because I know that when it comes to little boys, especially little black boys,
Yeah.
they're put into this box that they are trouble. And
Yeah.
I've confronted teachers with this same rhetoric and said, "This is what you are doing," and they're like,
Mm.
"Oh, what's the word? The term that they would use now, I didn't know that it was called then. They gaslight it."
Yeah, I think it's really important actually that this term has become such an accessible and understood thing, because it's so relevant, particularly as a parent of colour, in terms of dealing with mainstream education, the local authorities, and
Yeah.
particularly one-on-one teacher situations.
What I found and what I have noted is that there is a bias,
Yeah.
and there is definitely a difference between bias and an ism,
Yeah.
because you can have racial bias, but racial bias coupled with racism is deadly. And unless we're able to differentiate between the two,
Yeah.
as a parent, we are in that scenario and that difficulty where you is it bias or is it racism? Now, when it comes to racism, we're talking much deeper, the institutionalized racism
Kind of
within the education
systematic.
system.
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Yes. Yes.
because that's a whole different thing. Racial bias may not be as quite prevalent in schools now as it was when I was at school.
No, of course, but in some ways, when it kind of manages to hide and kind of manifest itself in these
Yes,
kind of minor, is what they would maybe
yes,
term them, kind of sanctions, or they kind of
yes,
become part of this kind of narrative of being just a teacher or being part of the school. It's really
yes.
dangerous because it's really hard to kind of put your finger on and kind of actually communicate that in a way that's listened to.
Well, oftentimes, when something is covert and not overt in your face, it's
Mm.
very, it's a bit like what it's a bit like um, for example, I'll put it in this way: I'm wearing an orange top, and you might interpret it, oh well, it's peach colored.
Mm.
I know it's orange.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah,
I bought it as orange. You telling me it's peach does not change the fact that it's an orange top.
yeah. No, I know. I
And
understand.
but the argument will be is, well, I only said it was a peach colored top. It's not that. What's the big deal? But the
Yeah,
big deal is it's orange. And in my world and in my interpretation, it's an orange top. So
yeah.
you just, because you interpret it as peach doesn't
But it
make it.
doesn't change the fact of what it is.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that
So I understand.
sometimes, as a parent, we have to navigate that. Is those little subtleties
Yeah,
within the education system that I've found that I've had to navigate and say, well, you
yeah.
might say it's only this,
But for me, it's
but
this.
for
For me,
me
it's
it's a
what
big
it's
deal.
doing to my kid. Yeah.
In,
And
in,
I
in
would say, like,
yeah.
as a strange term, like as a seasoned parent, because you said that you've been in and out of schools for a while. What would you
Mm.
say you've kind of learned, maybe even subconsciously, to do in order to kind of make sure that your kids are being treated in the way that you want them to be treated, or safeguarding your children? Like, how have you learned to kind of navigate these kind of conversations in schools?
I've learned, I've actually taught my children, all of my children know about good manners,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
not, and they're not allowed to speak street slang in the house. You're
Good.
talking to your friends, that's great. You talk to your friends, you call them blood, you call them bro, but you don't come in the house and talk to me like that. No. You know, there is a, I have a standard. I set standards for them.
Okay. Yeah.
And in doing so, what I found is it creates, sometimes it creates that smoke screen, because they know that they're not dealing with a typical, um what's the word, they're not able to stereotype, is the word, my
Mm.
children in the way that they normally stereotype them,
Which is
because
an easy way for them to kind of do that.
yeah, and that's, and so by the time, if I've ever had to go into the school, they're not quite sure what they're getting, and I like that. I
Yeah.
like that they're not quite sure. We had, a few years back, we went to, we had to go and see the headmaster. We demanded to see the headmaster of a high school of one of our children. And I remember he was a man that liked numbers. He was always talking about this percentage and that percentage.
Mm.
So he was saying, oh, whenever we have the surveys at our, parent evenings, 99% of the parents are very happy with the way the school's run. So my husband doesn't say much, but when he does, he leaned forward, he said to him in a very quiet voice, he said, well, we're the 1%. And there was that pin drop moment, oh, well, pin drop, mic drop moment. I thought, there you go. That's why
That's
I
the
married this
line. That's the
man.
line. Yeah. Yeah.
But he went quiet. It was like, oh, you know, check yourself. If we're in front of you and we're unhappy with something, then we are the 1%. And
Yeah.
then on
Yeah.
top of that, he was, well, I've got 16-year-olds and da 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 da. So this was where it was really good. So I said, okay, so you've been a parent for 16 years. I've been a parent for 30. And I sat back.
Yeah.
So in other words, I'm telling you, I'm the more experienced parent. So
Yeah.
before you talk about your teenage boys and whatever experience you've had with them, I
Yeah.
can tell you, I've had 30 years of this education system. So if anybody can tell you, I can tell you your job.
Yeah.
Don't be, I just didn't like
No,
that
I get it.
constant
The tone.
kind of comparison, because you can't compare. You are white English. Your
Yeah.
boys probably go private school. You
Yeah.
don't be telling me about you're in a comprehensive school.
And how would you say homeschooling your child has relieved your anxieties?
Um, it's really that it's heightened it in one aspect, because I worry that he's not getting a fully rounded education in the way the system expects him to get. And I say that because, I'm not going to do things necessarily via the curriculum, although I do have access to the curriculums, and know what they expect. But it's heightened it because I know that he needs the kind of attention that he needs. I do not know if I have that level of patience and understanding really to give him a full 100%,
Yeah.
because I know that part of me still wants to do my own little projects, still wants to do my own bits and pieces. In saying that, it is my intention now that the diagnosis has been rubber stamped, so to speak,
Yeah.
to actually get him back into a mainstream school, but
Oh,
with
really?
the help that
He
he should
deserves.
have gotten in the first place, because he's a
Understand.
very bright child. He scored above average for his SATs, and he's very bright.
Yeah.
And that's what irritates me, because I know that when he was in primary school, there was a lot of trying to keep him down and hold him back. And it
Yeah.
wasn't done in my face. It was done very subtly. When you read the reports and like, and I'm reading it and I'm thinking, no, he knows he wasn't engaged, or he didn't like the subject. He tells me how much he dislikes maths, but he only dislikes maths because
Communicate
it means
together.
he's got to focus.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's actually very good at it. He's actually studying maths at GCSE foundation level, and he's 12. So as far as I'm concerned, I've put him a bit higher. I've pushed him. So
Yeah.
he's doing algebra. He's doing all the stuff that maybe he wouldn't be
Amazing.
introduced to
Yeah.
just yet.
Yeah. And what do you kind of think about there being more Black teachers? Do you think that's something that would in part kind of relieve the anxiety and the kind of pressures put on Black parents
Oh,
sending their kids to school?
that's a very, very difficult question. And I tell you why. It's not as simple as having a
Okay.
Black teacher. It's a bit like having choosing to cure or change something unnatural with something natural. Um, having, I know a number of Black teachers actually,
Okay.
and they say the system is what is the issue that needs to be fixed. It's
Yeah.
not teachers alone that will change anything. You've got to go into the policies. You've got to go into the legislation. So
Yeah.
you need people, Black people, African Caribbean, Black British, whatever you want, Asian. You need not. In fact, no. Let me separate it for a minute, because in order for the policies to change,
Yeah.
you need people in the policy making levels
Positions.
to be
I understand
of
that for it to
that
be
heritage.
institutional change rather than kind of at the lower levels where they have less
Yeah,
ability to make those kind of key decisions.
that's correct. Because at the end of the day, there's a group of teachers in South London, in Croydon, put together a British Black history book. Fantastic book, a
Mm.
fantastic resource for secondary schools. I got a copy of the book, and I thought, it's so simple. Why couldn't, this should be nationwide, not
Yes,
just
of
in,
course, of course. Yeah.
it should be everywhere. But in order for it to get in there, again, you have to policy changes. I remember signing a petition saying, to teach the real history across the board. Don't just cherry pick what you want to teach everything. Teach the ugly side of colonialism and imperialism.
Yeah.
Teach that,
It's necessary. It's
across
really,
the
really
board.
necessary.
Yeah, across the board, because there's many um, youngsters that, there's more than there's more than, say, the Lewis Hamiltons and the Idris Elbas. There's more than
Yeah.
them.
Oh, and
There was people
it's
before
definitely
them.
important to kind of have a kind of an idea of Blackness that actually also exists out of the entertainment and the sports industry.
That's right. Yes. And in the sciences, in STEM, scientific, technology. The crazy thing is that I tell my children, look, I was one of only 5 women that went and studied computer studies at college when I was there. And
Yeah.
I said,
Yeah.
it's like, and I was slowly but surely steered away from, if you like, the technical side of things. But it's still in me. It's a foundation. It's something that's never left me.
Yeah.
I'm still very technical. My
Yeah.
daughter now is studying biomedical science. That's what she's studying at university. I've got another child who's doing performing arts, and all of my children are creative. They've got all these
Yeah,
creative
yeah,
skills.
yeah. But it's important that that's kind of nurtured not only within the home but at school as well.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's just not.
Yeah.
If anything, it is and it isn't. If, for example, with my daughter, if her secondary school had their way, they'd have pushed her into becoming an athlete,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
because she represented her school, and got them through. I think it was an all-school thing, and they won the trophy for the first time in like 20 years because she was part of their track team and
Yeah.
was super fast and got them in, and they won. And I remember there was a track meet that she was supposed to go to, but she had an exam. That was it. And I said, no, you need to be home revising for that. You ain't going to run for no one.
Yeah.
And they were very upset with me, but I said, no. I said, so you would rather that she didn't revise for her exam and
Let's
ran
think
to
of bad
represent your
grades.
school.
Yeah.
I said, when she leaves your school, is your school going to pay for anything? That's
No.
that's exactly what I said. I said, are they going to pay for anything? And she went quiet. But I thought,
No,
I
I
really
think
was
that's.
taken aback.
I think it's really nice as well that we've had this conversation about sports as well, because I think that's one that like hasn't come up yet, and I think it's important to kind of understand that, you know, there are so many identities and so many stories and histories that kind of exist outside of that bubble, and I think it's very hard if you don't fit into that bubble as well as sports and entertainment to kind of
Yeah.
connect yourself to the identity, because you're told so much. If you're not, you know, if you can't sing, if you can't rap, if you're not fast,
Oh,
yeah,
you know, the crazy thing is, my youngest, one of the difficulties he had with making friends was that he absolutely detests football. He doesn't like football,
yeah,
doesn't like
yeah,
watching it, doesn't like playing it. And that was all that was, you know, and he used to come home quite mad that he said, they're so annoying, mum. They're annoying. And I'd be like, what's annoying now? Oh, they're going on about football or they're running. He didn't like anything athletic, sports, nothing.
and that's okay, and that is okay.
Yeah, and that's why I had to show him. But he's a computer child. He loves computer games. He'll play
Yeah.
that all day if you let him. But he likes strategy, and he likes things that kind of enables him to create plots and
Yeah, nice. That is
yeah.
really nice. Thank you so much for speaking to me today.
No
I
worries.
really appreciate your time.